Every adversity carries within it the seed of an equal or even greater benefit. At first, that may sound paradoxical. But think about it. Pain, setbacks, losses, difficulties, they aren't random misfortunes. They are essential parts of our growth. They test us. They shape us. They measure our strength and they prepare us for what comes next. Successful people aren't different because they have no problems. They face obstacles just like everyone else. What sets them apart is how they respond. They don't let challenges stop them. Instead, they use them as opportunities to build endurance and wisdom. For them, a problem isn't a wall, it's a test. And that single shift in interpretation makes all the difference. Because the way we interpret events is what defines who we become. It's critical to understand the difference between two concepts that most people confuse: defeat and failure. They are not the same thing. Defeat is an event. It's a fact. You didn't get the promotion. Your project fell apart. Your relationship ended. That's reality. External, temporary, often painful, but it does not define who you are. Defeat is feedback from the world. A signal saying, this approach didn't work. Try another. That's all it is, a single event, nothing more. Failure, on the other hand, is a state of mind. It begins when you take that defeat and make it personal. You say, I'm a failure. Nothing works out for me. You take an external event and turn it into an identity. And that's not fact, it's interpretation. More than that, it's a choice. In the space between the event and your reaction lies the decision: will this remain a lesson, or will it become a verdict? That space is where your destiny is decided. Picture this. Two people open a coffee shop. 6 months later, the business goes under. That's the fact: defeat. Now, watch the reactions. The first person says, I knew it. I'm not cut out for business. I'll never succeed. I'm a failure. They take the event and fuse it with their identity. The second person says, all right, that plan didn't work. Maybe the location was wrong. Maybe prices were too high, or marketing too weak. What lessons can I take from this? They separate the event from themselves and turn it into knowledge. Two opposite reactions to the same event. The lesson is clear: defeat is what happens to us. Failure is how we choose to respond. That's where our power lies. We can't always control events. But we always control our response. Which means any defeat can remain just a lesson, not a life sentence. The author illustrates this with a few analogies. First, a river. A river always looks for the path of least resistance. When it meets a stone or a hill, it bends around it. Seems logical. But the result is a long, winding path. The river takes far longer to reach the ocean. People who avoid challenges are like that river. They dodge difficult conversations, responsibilities, hard work. Their path becomes longer, less effective. Their character grows weaker. Crooked, in this sense, doesn't mean dishonest. It means inefficient, unable to move directly toward potential. The second analogy is muscles. If you want physical strength, you go to the gym and lift weights. Without resistance, muscles don't grow. In fact, they shrink. The mind works the same way. It needs training. And that training comes in the form of problems, conflicts, and challenges. They force us to think, to find new solutions, to become more flexible and resilient. A life without problems is like a body without exercise, weak and underdeveloped. The author even admits his own philosophy was shaped by difficulties. Without challenges, he wouldn't have been pushed to think, to analyze, to create new ideas. Growth requires struggle. Hardship isn't punishment, it's the condition of progress. So the question becomes, which inner muscle should we train? The answer is self-analysis. A clear, honest look at yourself is one of the best investments you can make. Because the return pays out everywhere. First, it saves time and energy. When you know your weaknesses, you stop stepping on the same rakes again and again. Second, it improves decision making. You become aware of tendencies like procrastination, fear of risk, or avoidance of responsibility, and you adjust accordingly. Third, it enables true growth. Because you can't change what you won't acknowledge. Only honesty with yourself turns weakness into strength. Of course, this process is uncomfortable. It's far easier to blame fate, other people, or circumstances than to look in the mirror and say, I lack discipline. I give up too easily. I overreact to criticism. That requires courage. But that very courage is the foundation of growth. There's one more critical point. The only arena where we have absolute control is our mind. We can't control the economy, the weather, the past, or what other people think. But we can control what we focus on. Which thoughts we cultivate, which ones we dismiss. That's our greatest freedom and our greatest responsibility. The mind is like a magnet. A negative mind repels opportunities, people, even joy. A positive mind attracts. It draws in like-minded people, new ideas, fresh chances. Positive thinking isn't naive optimism. It's a practical tool. But it doesn't come automatically. It requires effort. Daily, conscious effort. Because the world around us is saturated with negativity, news, complaints, disappointments. If you don't actively train your mind, it defaults to the negative. Again, the path of least resistance. To drive this point home, the author shares a story about his book Think and Grow Rich. The first manuscript was written during the Great Depression, when he was in a low state. When he reread it, he realized the text was heavy with negativity. He didn't edit a single sentence. Instead, he rewrote the entire book from scratch, but this time in a state of inspiration and positivity. That version became one of the most successful personal development books in history. The conclusion is obvious: our internal state directly shapes the outcome of our work. So let's gather the main ideas. Defeats are inevitable. But failure exists only if we decide to wear it as an identity. Challenges are our training ground, without them, we weaken. Honest self-reflection is the foundation of growth. And the mind is a magnet, pulling toward us whatever matches our dominant state. In the end, it all comes down to this: we can't avoid problems, but we can learn to use them for growth. We can't always control events, but we can always control our response. And that, ultimately, is where true strength lies.